Okay, the next is this really cute yellow set that I made from a right side pattern. I will link her Etsy shop down below. I love her patterns. So just the top is what I use that pattern for, but I ended up cutting off a vintage skirt that I had that was, again, like almost floor length, which I just don't love on myself. So I cut it off to be a mini skirt, which I like a lot better, and then use the remainder of the fabric for the top. So again, similar to other pieces, I didn't have that much material to work with. So there is a seam down the middle, which isn't a part of the regular pattern, I don't believe, but it's just kind of the way I had to piece things together. And then I believe somehow I augmented the back as well, but I will again link the original pattern down below if I can find it. I like how this turned out. It's not the most comfortable. Like, I wish I had a little bit of extra room with the fabric, because around the armholes, it's just a little bit too tight. And so I wish I had a bit more leeway, but considering this was made from scraps, I really like it. I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10 because I do wish it was a bit more comfortable, but I love the way it looks and I love the pattern. Next is this gold top. This is another upcycling moment. This started as a button down that I thrifted, and I just had to get it because the material was so amazing. I'm pretty sure it's 100% silk, so I couldn't pass it up. However, I didn't like the way the original top appeared, like it would fit me. Similar to other projects that I've mentioned, you'll notice this is an extreme theme in my sewing, is that because it was upcycled, I didn't have as much fabric as I would have necessarily wanted to work with. So that does mean that it's a bit tighter and not constructed 100% how I would like. But all that being said, I still love it. I still think it's flattering and the material is amazing. And I don't own anything else like this. So I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. No, an 8 out of 10. This next set I'm gonna rate as 2 separate pieces because they're very different the way they're constructed. We'll start with the mini skirt. I love this. I really like the way that it fits. I was experimenting with a lot of top stitching in this project, as you can tell, and I love the way that this contrasting detail turned out. So for this skirt, it was a pattern that I drafted myself. It was really easy, just like an A-line mini skirt with a side zipper. The thing that I really love about this is the 2 slits in the center of either leg with the contrasting stitching on top of them. I love the way that this turned out. This is something that I tried in other fabrics and it just didn't work as well as it did here. I think it's because of the top stitching, like it just accentuates that detail so perfectly. The only thing that I don't love about this, and maybe I'll replace it one day, is the zipper that I used. It's not in this picture, but it's very clunky, and that was just strictly because I didn't want to go all the way to the fabric store just for a zipper, because it's about 25 minutes away from my house, and so that just felt a little bit wasteful. So I used whatever I could that I had, and it just wasn't right. I would have rather had an invisible zipper. The material that I used for both of these pieces was a really thin wool that I got from my grandma. It's like a vintage wool material. So it is kind of scratchy. So I would like to see these same silhouettes in a fabric that's a little bit more comfortable. But all that being said, I think I'm gonna rate the skirt like a 7.5 because there's a few little practicality things, like I said, with the material and zipper that I don't love, but overall the concept I do really like. For the top, this was, I think, the first button down. I'm gonna put that in quotes because it doesn't actually have buttons. So there was quite a few things that were new to me in this top. Outer pockets, collar, yoke that you can't see, but a yoke is like that panel of fabric in the back of a button down below the shoulders. Also the facings that run down the center of this top, those weren't new to me, but I definitely paid way more attention to detail with all of these finishes because I wanted the top stitching to be such a statement. So I also double stitched basically all of the finishes on this, and I even top stitched the side seams in the sleeves, which I like. So it has that little detail of white running through there as well. So in terms of all of those things, I think I did great. But the two things that I was a little bit intimidated by, and so I didn't add them into this, however they were included in this pattern. This was just like a vintage men's button-down pattern. Those things were cuffs and buttons. These are just finishes that I have been putting off learning because I'm lazy. So I have no excuse. I'm gonna rate this an 8 out of 10 just because it's not actually a button down, so it's kind of awkward because it doesn't close. And I would have rather I just went one step further. Even if I didn't add the buttons, I wish I added cuffs. Maybe I could add them in another time, but for that reason, it'll get an 8 out of 10 with a hefty emphasis on the 8 points because I really love the finishes I used. Next we have this brown satin dress. I love this material. This dress I am shocked by because it was so easy to make. This is just something that I made a pattern for myself and threw together pretty quickly, and I actually love the way that it turned out. This is a stretchy satin material. It's like a thick satin stretch material that I thrifted. I love it. It's really soft and really comfortable, and it has a lot of really great like compression to it, so it's really supportive, which is why I thought that I could get away with this strapless fit, and I think I did. So I added almost like a bandeau lining to the bodice of this dress, and it just kind of blends in seamlessly with the rest of it. And then I also added a slit in the leg using the same technique I used for the black mini skirt, and I love the way it turned out. The only thing I don't like about this dress is that the one side of fabric where the slit ends on the hem kind of curls outwards, and so I haven't bothered to iron it. I don't know if that will help, but this doesn't really seem like an ironable material, so I'm not sure. That's the only thing I don't like, is that the stitching kind of curled the fabric, but other than that, I love this, and I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10 for all those reasons. This is a upcycle that turned out absolutely perfectly. This was a long dress. I thrifted this or was given this or something. It's this really nice like kind of stretchy denim material, and the dress was about like knee length maybe. So years ago I cut it, and I never ended up hemming it because I cut it just a smidge too short. So I thought if I put like a nice double stitched hem on it, it would just take away too much fabric and then it would be way too short. So I always just left it frayed, but then I never wore it because it just felt kind of sloppy to me. So I decided to cut the bottom off, as I've done with a lot of these pieces, and I turned that into a really fun like strapless sort of corset style top, but it's really stretchy, so it's super comfortable. And then the top layer became like a little jacket almost that falls at basically the same length that the under top does. For this top I really enjoyed constructing it because I worked with a lot of darts in the bodice portion. You can't really see in this photo, but I do remember placing some strategic darts different places, which I found really fun just to kind of manipulate the fit of it. And then on the top and bottom of the under portion, and then on the bottom of the jacket, you can see on the jacket how I did this hem. So since this was already constructed and then I cut it apart, you can see like where the buttons are and where the serged seams are on the inside of this. If you hem that and fold it over twice, that's just a lot of layers of fabric for your machine to go through, and it's gonna make not only sewing it really difficult, but it's gonna look not right. Like it's gonna look lumpy and weird. I don't know what you call this kind of hem, but I applied basically the same principles you would use attaching a facing or a lining, where you cut the same pattern but in just a little strip of fabric, and then sew those on right sides together and turn it over. So where you end up stitching that down, there's not as much fabric to go through. If that makes any sense, if you are a beginner sewer, I might not be explaining this well, but if somebody knows what that technique is, please comment it down below so that everybody can know. But I'm so happy with how that turned out. And one little detail that I actually added, and this was strictly because I didn't have enough fabric to do this technique on the bottom of both pieces as well as the top of the inside. So on the top, I did a little strip of blue velvet fabric, so it just adds this like really adorable little finish that only I can see, but I just love those little details. When you're the one making pieces, you get to customize it to be literally whatever you want. So I'm giving this set a 10 because I love it and I actually wear it very frequently. This dress I really love. So that whole like fairy, angelic, cottagecore sort of vibe that I said wasn't my style at all, this is how I would make that my style. I have to have a leg out. I have to have see-through fabric. I don't know why I'm like this, I just am. This I really love. This is like a stretchy lace material that I got at the fabric store. I don't know why I said that. I love this color. It's definitely repeated a few times throughout this video. It's one of my favorites. I find it really flattering with my skin tone, and so I love that about this dress. I love the way that I constructed this. I like the bodice. I did a similar bandeau sort of lining to the brown satin dress, so I like the way that that turned out, and I made sure to set the straps out quite far and give myself a little bit of extra room across here so that when I put the dress on, it had that little bit of gape to create the like pooling effect that you see here. So I love that. And then what I did was ran elastic threading from here and then went all the way down like this to go across my waist and down the opposite leg to where that slit starts. And this is just a detail that I am obsessed with, and you can see what it actually ended up doing was the slit was in the side seam, but since I cinched that in so much, that elastic actually ended up pulling the side seam in, so you can see it creates like a triangle with those stitch lines. That was completely unintentional, but I love it because it managed to pull the slit to the front of my leg as opposed to the side, and then give that like geometric detail in the front. So a lot of the things about this dress were a happy accident, but I love it. Again, classic problem for me, I didn't line this. I find I gravitate so much towards these like chiffons and lace materials because I just like thin fabric on me, especially in the summertime, which is when I made a lot of these pieces. But then I struggle with being able to style them. I don't mind being able to see undergarments through something as long as it looks intentional. Like with the top that I'm wearing today, I have a bralette under here that you can see, but the top is sheer enough that like you know it was a choice. It's not like it's just a little bit sheer and you can happen to see your undergarments in the light. Like that looks like an accident. With something like this, I just struggle being able to style it. So I want to work on that this summer because I don't want to give up on this dress. So I'm going to give this one a 9 because of all of the details that I mentioned, except it loses 1 point because it's not lined. So 9 out of 10. I think I'm going to end this video here. I have a few pieces I've made since then, but they're a little bit more fall and winter sort of vibe. So I thought in the spirit of spring being here and summer just around the corner, I would keep it to just those pieces. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that it gave you some inspiration for your sewing journey. I hate that word, but let's call it a sewing journey because it is one. I've had so many horrible things that I've sewn. I've been sewing for over 10 years now. I still make so many mistakes. There's so many techniques that I don't understand still. There's always things to be learning, and so I hope this inspires you a little bit to try some new techniques out, to look at some of your past projects and kind of figure out how you can improve them and how you can challenge yourself to kind of take a few little extra steps here and there with your sewing techniques. You can like this video down below if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more content just like this from me, and I will see you back here next time.